All right, well, let's get started with the agenda. At 7 o'clock, we have the enforcement order for the community center project VFW update. I know, Mary, you had some photos and some information in your report. Could you please provide us with an update?
Yes, I certainly can. And you just share it. Sorry, it's like 3 or 4 clicks. All right, so this is immediately after the last meeting, that top photo. I met with Stephen, and this was on the 4th. They had, and the jute cloth is really nice. I was pleased. It's got big openings, so I think seed will go through it in the spring. They weren't able to put the staples in because it was so rocky, he said. I did suggest that maybe they shorten the staples a little bit because I guess they were pretty long, and try again, but they did kind of mat it down with rocks. So that one section looks pretty good, but the amount that they got, it has the worst section, but the whole rest of the bank is still open. I did ask him to get some more, and that's the plan, is he's going to get some more and cover this other area. And they still have the pile in the center. I think it's getting smaller, but it is still there. And I did remind them they need to file a determination. So I guess at this point, though, since they have, at least covered the worst area with jute, I think unless the commission has concerns, I mean, it's not a perfect job, but I think it's reasonable. I think it may be time to lift the enforcement orders against the AO and Hutter, while still leaving the enforcement order for the VFW and Ed McKinney. So just up to the commission.
Any discussion about that? Commission? Paul, do you have anything to say?
No, I'm just waiting to hear
what we do.
Your decision now, Mike.
Well, I would entertain a motion to lift the enforcement orders as Mary has described.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
Well, let's have a voice vote then.
Marcella.
Sandy, aye.
Tom, aye.
Alan, aye.
David, aye.
Mike, aye. Believe I heard everybody. Okay, so Mary, can you prepare the paperwork to maybe perhaps a letter to?
Yes, I will write a letter. Write a few letters to do that.
Okay.
Mary?
Yep.
I will be meeting with the Hutter people tomorrow, so I will just pass this along.
Okay.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the professional way in which this was handled on your part.
Thank you, Paul. Sometimes I'm professional, and sometimes I'm not. But thank you.
Mike, this is Chris with the enforcement order for the VFW. Still be on our agenda for 7 o'clock.
That's a good question. Why not?
Mary, do we have
Let's keep them on.
for when they're going to submit a request for determination?
Yeah, I think we need to pin them down for a date on that, because I did kind of ask, do you have an idea? And they're like, well, we got to have a meeting and we got to agree. And so I'm not sure if they can't get their act together in a month or so, I figure maybe maybe they need to do 2 or something, because they've already done work and they need to permit that. And then if they want to change it, they can do something else, submit again.
What I'm thinking is when you write the letter to, the town, basically, to the town's contractors, perhaps it should be one letter, and in the letter should also go to the VFW, and it should state our position about their enforcement order, that theirs is not lifted.
Yeah.
We are expecting, more erosion control matting. We are expecting a request for determination to be submitted, that kind of thing.
Yep. And then the seeding in the spring. Yeah. There's a lot of things they need to do.
Yeah, the whole list, the whole laundry list. And just to remind them that we're still watching.
Yeah.
And that they're the only ones left on the hook. So
I will do that. I'll prepare a draft and send it around to the commission.
Anything else on this topic? Okay, well, we've got about 6 minutes to the next hearing item. Let's go up to general business, administrator's report. Get a few things in there.
Yeah. All right. So in my administrator's report, I think so just a follow up on 165 South Street. Rick Morrell stopped by today to pick up the notice of intent forms and just to try to understand the process. And he thinks he can get the submission ready in 2 to 3 weeks. So I think that was okay. He's planning on, and tell me if I should guide him differently. He does have that plan, I think, which most of you saw, which shows the partial wetland delineation. I told him it was okay to sketch the road out on there and write his improvements up on there, if that's okay with you guys. And so that's that. And then 162A Main Street, the sawmill operation. I talked with the woman yesterday who runs it, and she says she definitely wants to cooperate with the Conservation Commission, and they want to try to move everything out of the 200-foot zone. So that was wonderful. They're going to kind of go measure out and try to figure out where they're going to put stuff, and then they're going to call me over for a meeting. So I can talk with them and inspect. And if you guys have any other comments or would like to be involved with that, just, let me know how we should proceed on that. But it seemed like a good plan of action to me. I think the final thing for me is I did not go ahead and draft the determination for the Whitney Conservation Area East, because when we got the DEP number for Robertson Conservation Area, we realized that we needed to look more closely at that North Street determination. And so we can talk about that now. I amended my report on that. I went out and looked at the wetland more closely to figure out if the cart road is in the wetland or not. It is a very, the site is very interesting hydraulically or whatever. All the soil, I took several augering, is definitely wetland soil all around it. I never saw a piece of upland soil anywhere I dug. But all the vegetation is oaks and princess pine, and if you look at all the vegetation, it turns out, and maybe in the summer it would be different, I'm not sure, but looking at it in the winter, it was more upland than wetland vegetation. So that was that. And so I guess for that determination, we can say that the cart road is, since it didn't have the wetland vegetation, it's not in a wetland, and therefore we made the appropriate decision, and that the boardwalks would not be fill in the wetland because they're not in a wetland. The cinder blocks and the sleepers are not in a wetland. So that's just an update.
Mary, can we also say, or commissioners, that if an area is developed, say a cart path, an ancient cart path that is still being used, that whether or not it's got cattails growing in it, it's not a resource area. What doesn't matter what the soils are or the vegetation. If it is a developed strip of land, a development that predated the Wetland Protection Act, I think we should somehow make a call along those lines too, that it's for a negative determination. Now, there's some of you may remember there's an ancient cart path at Steffens. It runs alongside the big field. Really nice because it's got stone walls on both sides. Years ago, I contacted the DEP to ask whether or not, and it's got wetlands. Entire cart path, by the way, is wetland. Okay, for many, many feet. So I contacted the DEP for their opinion about that one, and they clearly said since it's abandoned, it's a resource area. So, so there's a distinction between. I think we can safely make, whether the P or agree or not, but I think we can safely try to make that. There's a distinction between a cart path that is, not abandoned and one that is long ago abandoned. So it's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, you're saying that we shouldn't consider them to be wetlands if they've been a cart path for many, many years? That
Basically,
they're like land being used?
Yeah, that's basically what I'm kind of saying. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
well, I agree in some cases, but not, I wouldn't like make a hard and fast rule of that. I like to do a case by case as they come up.
Yeah,
but I agree with you. If it's been used for, forever, then there should be some leniency there.
Well, for example, when we just did that determination for 130 High Street, and they had the wetland line growing right through their backyard, and I asked them to stop mowing the area. So that would be an example that might be similar. I don't know. Yeah, it's a tough.
Right.
It's a tough.
Something like mowing something that they've been mowing, that's a judgment call. If you're taking away all the children's play area,
right.
I wouldn't say too much, but if it's a 3-acre land and nobody's really using that corner, then yeah, they could stop mowing it. So whatever. I just feel it's a judgment call. Apply the law as best we can.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's 7:17. We can start talking about the Robertson notice of intent. There's multiple issues here. I suggest maybe we start with the trail bridge. That might be the easier one to discuss. We got some comments back from both Mass Natural Heritage and the DEP about the trail bridge. I should state, I'm actually, you know what, Mary, you should probably do this because I'm actually somewhat the applicant. So I will be speaking as a conservation commissioner who will abstain from a vote. But I do have some opinions on some of the comments. So Mary, could you maybe start with the trail bridge and summarize any issues that you see?
All right. Yeah, shall I bring up the DEP comments on the screen?
Sure.
Just give me a second here to find those. Sorry. All right, so DEP had several comments. All right, so the comments about the bridge, where they wanted to make sure that there was no impact to vegetation by the installation. And then the trail bridge, because the plans are not formal yet, really is the DEP would like, when the plans become formalized, the commission needs to review them again. And so there's a couple ways the commission can do that. DEP suggesting maybe do an amendment, but I believe it could also be appropriate to just continue this project, just like we've had, Governor's Landing, that's continued for 8 months or whatever. Just continue it until the plans are done. The commission could go either way on that, because the commission should review the plans. And then they had concerns about okay.
Well, I'd like to propose a third alternative.
Okay.
And that would be to issue order conditions with a condition that states that the commission will, that final plans will be submitted to the commission, and that if the location of the bridge is to change, or if the impact on wetland resource areas is to increase beyond what was shown in the conceptual plan, then a amended order will be required. Something along those lines. I would much rather do it that way than just keep this thing continued. It could be, a year before we have, at least 6 months before we have final plans, depending where we get the funds from, if we get the funds. I don't know. I would rather not continue this for so long. And the point is, if you continue it for so long, you should probably republic notice it anyway, because,
right.
Just like we've asked in some other circumstances. But I think in terms of protecting the resources, if there was a condition, again, that said, final plans have to be reviewed by the commission, and Natural Heritage also said they want to see the final plans, review those, and if there's any, really significant changes in location or in the impact, then an amended order, I think, should be required, so that would be as the applicant, that would be my suggestion.
Yes, I think those were all the issues with the bridge. Is that right, Mike?
Yeah, that was the major issue. There's no BVW there.
Yep.
We caught out some bank impact, about 10 feet on each side. It is turtle habitat or natural heritage habitat, so they would like to review the final plans, which is fine. Oh, and the one, I think Natural Heritage, they put a seasonal time of year restriction on construction. Basically, the construct when wood turtles are not in upland areas. So, and I think we could live with that restriction.
I thought it was just for transporting the materials, or maybe it was for all the construction. I'm not sure.
Well, but that's going to be the major. The transporting materials in is going to occur at the same time that they're building it. So I understand what you mean, though, but it's not like they're going to, haul in the beam in October and
right. That's true.
And build it the next summer or something. And anyway,
Yep, good point.
So anyway,
So, Mike, based
those are
on
my
that letter-
thoughts. So I think, the commission needs to think about which way it wants to go. If you want to go the other way and ask for an amended order, or keep this thing open, and that's your prerogative, of course.
This is
Either
Chris.
way, it's
I
fine with me. I see what Mike would like to do, and that's fine with me.
Yeah, I'm
This
okay
is
with that.
Chris. I agree. I agree with that also.
So, Mike, based on that letter, you don't see any need to redo the plans at all?
No, we do need, right now we have a conceptual plan. We do need basically stamped drawings. I mean, the building department's going to require that. But I don't see that, the design process is going to result in a plan that will have any unanticipated impacts to resource areas. And if it does, then, say, some design engineer comes out and says, you shouldn't build your bridge here. It needs to be, 100 feet somewhere else. I think that would be a significant enough change to require an amended order. But I just, I don't see us, as long as the bridge stays in that location, I mean, the impact is not going to increase on resource areas. So,
Yeah, just one thing, I don't know, Mike, whether you talked to Pat Roach at all, and I don't know whether he's correct, but he says that it may need to be handicapped accessible, which would be surprising to me considering its location, but that would.
It won't be.
Okay.
It would be a bridge to nowhere kind of
Right.
thing, because the slope, leading away from it, actually, certainly on one side and probably both sides, it just isn't conducive to that. We're going to have, we've been applying for this trails grant, and there's a whole bunch of information we need to provide relative to, all persons' access. It's possible for them to fund a project that doesn't have that access, but I think you kind of have to prove that it just isn't feasible. And I think we can do that here.
Yeah.
Even coming off of Fowler, there's slopes that just are too challenging. I was thinking, well, maybe you could have a accessible trail off of Fowler, and then you could get into the bridge, and someone could access the bridge and watch the water. But I think there's some very challenging sections between Fowler and the bridge location in terms of trying to make it accessible. So,
okay.
It'd be nice if it was different, but not every place can be accessible, as we know. Most of our properties have significant constraints.
Yeah, and then the other comments that Mia had were about the boardwalks, actually, and what we were talking about with North Street. So that the cinder blocks or the sleepers, when they're placed in the wetland, it's considered a fill. So we can't do that, or they can't. So there's a couple options. Helical piles would be okay, or just, doing a restoration area for the work.
Yeah, what she did say here, and she did say in an email to me that cited some Wetland Protection Act section, was that shading is also an issue. So, if you're building a tall boardwalk, across some salt marsh or something, you might not have shading impacts if the boardwalk was elevated high enough above the wetland. But here we're, boardwalks can be maybe 6 inches or a foot above the wetland. So there will be shading impact. And that's what the 240 square feet was based on. I was assuming that, you know, the resource area underneath the boardwalk will be altered by shading, and then a small amount of it will also be, you know, impacted by the sleepers, whether they be blocks or pressure treated wood. And you know, I researched this helical pile issue for a while, and then I realized, you know, even if we used helical piles, we still have shading impact. So why even think about using them? And I don't get further into it, but there'd be significant challenges to install them here. The soils are very stony, and they're also very expensive. From at least one vendor I found, just the brackets, which would hold would hold the stringers to the pile, helical pile, say, you know, are about $95 each, and we need a bunch of them. So it's just, I think we can mitigate, you know, I think the 240 square feet is a good estimate of the mitigation. It's conservative, it's based on shading impact, and certainly any direct impacts to the substrate will also be covered by under that 240 square feet.
Mike, I have a couple of questions. First of all, would using rocks that are on site to, you know, moving them, would that be considered fill also, like moving rocks around the site?
Well,
Like,
Mia had asked about that. She asked if we could use, at one point, she had asked if we could use, you know, live off the land type
yeah.
thing. But again, it doesn't get you away from the shading problem. You know, you're still impacting a resource.
The second question is, is there some way to scale this project down even a little bit? And even if it's just a little bit, does that make any difference? Are we still faced with having to do a mitigation area?
There's one location where you could avoid some wetland. You need to do basically a right angle turn, and you know, do two sides of the triangle instead of going right through the wetland with the hypotenuse. I think in a while since I had math, but you know, I personally think it would be just better to just, you know, put it more directly, because you know, that's what people are going to do, at least during the dry season. They're not, you know, they're just going to walk, you know, the shortest distance. It's in park management, it's called desire lines. You know, all over the place you see, you know, nice sidewalks are built or stone dust paths, and then people just cut across them, because, and they call those desire lines.
Yeah.
So it's only that one small section. All the rest of it is just a straight shot. That I don't think we can you know, minimize that. And it seems like what Mia said, you know, any level of fill is, or any level of impact requires mitigation. So
Okay.
we'll never get to zero on this one.
Got it.
The other thing I want to say, you know, we did you know, run across this before at Steffens. And the decision the commission made, we filed a notice of intent, and the decision the commission made was to mitigate for exactly these types of impacts. You know, the shading impact, the footing impact. And we did. We constructed a mitigation area. So it's precedent for doing that, and I think it's probably the right thing to do.
Do you have a place in mind that would be suitable for that?
I think I was thinking at Steffens. I think, you know, there's a CR on the Robinson property. I think it would be complicated to, if we even could do it, to build a replication area on the Robinson property. Obviously, you try to mitigate as close as possible to the impact, but in this case, there's a CR, and then also this impact area is well off the road, and to get anywhere near it with equipment to create a small mitigation area would have far more damage than the actual impact of the boardwalk. There's just a narrow path leading to this area, and so I would personally think someplace at Steffens down on the community garden side, down near Warren Brook. I think we could probably find a spot down there that was very accessible. There's wetland all along the brook there. We could probably find an area where we could just scale about, 300 square feet or something. So.
Is Steffens desirable because it isn't protected and that makes it easier so we don't have to get the permitting? Okay.
That's part of it. It's not encumbered by a CR. And then also just access. You could, you could drive a piece of equipment, a small backhoe, right down to the area to work without doing anything. Although there'd be a seasonal restriction because that is wood turtle habitat. So you'd have to build it, and respect that.
Would we still need to do a MESA review?
Well, Natural Heritage has already reviewed this. I think we would need to, if we decide to do a replication area anywhere within MESA habitat, then I think we need to touch base with them again. Because the funny thing, the boardwalks actually aren't in MESA habitat right now. They aren't. They're outside of MESA habitat. The bridge is within, but the bridge and probably the construction staging areas for the bridge are within it, but the boardwalks are outside of it. I mean, we could conceivably find an area, on the other side of Mechanic Street at Steffens that wasn't MESA habitat, and build a small replication area there. And that would avoid any need to go back to Natural Heritage or any restrictive construction windows.
Also, do we have other projects coming up that might end up wanting a replication area that we could make this a larger replication area as long as we're going in there with equipment to?
I don't think, it might be worth asking Mia, but I don't think the DEP has a mechanism for mitigation banking, unfortunately. In other words, you can't build a mitigation area and then kind of use it as a bank to if you fill 100 square feet, you subtract 100 square feet from your mitigation area credit. The federal government, Clean Water Act, has a very interesting program. Now, this does not qualify for that, but it's called the In Lieu Fee program, where basically if you fill some wetlands under a Army Corps of Engineers Clean Water Act permit, instead of building a replication area, you can just write a check, for some number of dollars per square foot of impact, and then those funds are aggregated together and used basically by the state to do mitigation work or habitat protection work. But unfortunately, I don't believe the state has a mitigation banking program like that. So.
Okay.
So Mary, as the applicant, I was just, at this time we continue this and, give the Land Stewardship Committee time to kind of digest this and perhaps propose a mitigation area. So I would respectfully request that this be continued for probably, well, at least 2 weeks, maybe even a month.
Okay. The next meeting is the 25th. I don't think the Land Stewardship Committee meets before then.
Yeah, so maybe continue it to the 8th, and then Land Stewardship will have a chance to meet on the 2nd February. And in the meantime, we can kind of scope out a potential mitigation area, Mary, and show it to you if we find something.
Yeah, we might even consider doing that this weekend when we're going to be in the neighborhood doing some flagging at the Mechanic Street property. If you have any sites in mind, Mike, we could maybe just go scope them out real quick if that's, but if you want to do a full out, examination of the property, we can do that as a separate visit.
Yeah. I don't have any sites in mind, but that Ursula, I was wondering about that. So Mechanic Street Trail going to cross any wetlands? We're going to run into the same exact issue there.
Well, a lot, yes. There's going to be, there's at least one place I'm saying that's going to require some kind of boardwalk or bridge. And a lot of it is on existing kind of trails and cart paths, but they haven't really been well used over the years. I'm sure you've seen it, and there are places where you could call it an existing cart path, but not everywhere. So that is something to think about.
Maybe the mitigation area could go on the Mechanic Street property. And just thinking, it's not really exactly banking, but I can recall one mitigation area not too long ago that was permitted that actually had fill on like 2 or 3 separate lots, right? The North Street project, I think they filled it, let's double check that, but so maybe, maybe we could build one mitigation area that covered both of these areas. We'd have to get an NOI out for Mechanic Street at some point, but maybe continue Robertson until Mechanic Street catches up to it. I don't know, just thinking.
Yeah, and that's feasible actually. I haven't spoken with anyone at SVT, but I think they would support getting some trails established and at least designing the trail network sooner rather than later.
Okay. Well, unless there are any other comments as the chair of this meeting, I'd like to propose that we continue the hearing for the Robertson NOI until February 8th. Any objections to that?
No.
Hearing none. Mary, please.
Anyone would like to make that motion?
So moved.
Second? That was you, Tom, right?
Correct.
Mike abstains.
Tom, I.
Alan, I.
Sandy, I. Chris, I.
Marcella, I.
Great. Mike, did you see that Steven Saucier is here now?
Yes, yes.
I'm
Steven?
quite sorry. I had a brain poop or something.
Well, we did discuss the enforcement order at the VFW, and I think the decision that was made at this time was the commission voted to lift the enforcement orders on the town and the construction contractor, but leave the enforcement order on the VFW in effect.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Mary will be writing a letter to all parties, which will kind of explain the situation, and she'll be asking the VFW for some additional activity, like filing the request for determination,
Mm-hmm.
additional erosion control, and seeding, things like that.
Mhm.
So
Thank you.
we did vote to lift it, the enforcement orders that were encumbered on the town's contractors.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Sounds
Stephen, I talked to Dave, and hopefully the word got around that, the jute cloth looks great. I liked the type of jute cloth you got, but you guys just need more. So
Okay.
get another roll. And if you can use the staples, do, but if it is too rocky, obviously we wouldn't want them sticking out. I don't think that would be good, but
Okay.
so.
Thank you for doing what you've done so far.
Well, thank you for
Appreciate it.
putting up with us.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think you guys are still on the agenda for next meeting, just for another kind of status update. The weather kind of continues on and off warm, so hopefully the next round of jute cloth will come in and you guys will be able to get that down.
Okay, I'll mark it on the calendar and all over the house.
January 25th.
All right. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Mm.
Okay, our next discussion item is for the annual report, and it's 7:46, so we can go into that annual report if you want, Mary. Can you bring up a copy of it?
Yes, I should be able to. Great. See if I can zoom in a little bit. Well, can you guys see that? Maybe if I make this.
Can you zoom it in or something?
Well, usually you can zoom, but this app doesn't seem to have obvious.
What is this, the town report?
Yeah, maybe I have it in the report. I don't think so. I don't think I have it in my email. Well, if I make it really big on my screen, maybe you'll be able to see it better. I don't know if that helps or not. Does that change it at all?
It does change it slightly on my screen.
Yeah.
So
It changes this, the window is bigger, but the document is no bigger.
Yeah, boy, I feel like I ought to be able to somehow do it, but this is Google Docs. It's
Something-
not as good. Maybe if
Something to learn.
I know, maybe if I download it, that would do it. Now it's in a different window. You guys can't see it, right? I got to change my window. This will do it though. Yay.
All right.
You guys want it bigger?
That's good.
That's great. That's great.
So the beginning section, I know Mike sent out some comments maybe today that I did not include. So this is just kind of bare bones, and obviously some stuff could be added. I thought maybe something would want to be written about the Mechanic Street property, because the red is stuff that you guys did last year.
As far as the Mechanic Street property is concerned, I think this is Bill, by the way. I suggest adding something along the lines of the preservation activities in 2022 included the purchase of the land on Mechanic Street, which is described in more detail in the Open Space Committee report. And then I would also add the Conservation Commission committed $17,500 for the purchase of the APR. I can send you what I've drafted.
Okay, that would be great.
I also have a couple more comments. I'm not a member of the commission, so perhaps I don't have any standing here, but if you're interested.
Go for it, Bill.
I think the agent position is actually the administrator position, and it gets referred to differently in different places. I would just standardize that. And then the other thing is, did East Street Estates, did we actually approve a NOI and create an order of conditions for that?
We did.
Because I checked the registry and there is no order of conditions recorded.
You know what? It's just kind of funny. You may, next time you're in Denise's office, town clerk's office, check to see if there's still a copy of the notice of order of conditions sitting there waiting to be picked up. Because it was probably 6 weeks after we issued it this summer. I noticed it was still sitting there.
All right.
And I mentioned to Denise, and she said she'd called him. You know, so I'm not at all surprised it hasn't been recorded.
All right.
So,
and the one other thing is we typically have. You've typically not called out the people who the enforcement orders have been issued against. And in this case here, you've made it quite explicit that it's the VFW.
Sure, we can pull that out. That's a good comment.
And then this is more just so I understand. Ice in and ice out is essentially the first time the pond is completely ice covered, and ice out is the last time, or the last, because we're coming up, we have these, ice in, ice out, ice in, ice out. So but the ice in and ice out is the final one of each of those events, or the first and the final of each of those events.
Correct. That's
all right.
It.
Yeah, and
I was
that'll
allow
confused
us
in
to.
that.
I wish I'd been doing ice in sooner, but what we can kind of then have is something maybe called an ice season, which is, the length of number of days between ice in and the last ice out. But
Yes.
that's the way I was kind of looking at it. I wouldn't put that in here, but
Well, and Mike, the December 12th date is from this winter, right? Or no? Or is that from 2021? The ice.
no, I
in?
think hold on, let me look at my calendar. I think the 12th. It was the 12th this year.
Okay. So when we're doing it in the report, it's just covering the calendar year. We're not trying to cover like the number of days, like you were saying.
Right. Yeah. We're not putting that in there. But
Yeah.
so ice in was the 12th.
Okay.
December 12th.
Is it significant that that we're having ice in, ice outs? Should we be tracking that?
Well, it is interesting that until about 5 years ago, we didn't have any ice outs, any temporary ice outs occurring in January. In the last 4 or 5 years, I think 4 or 5 of those years, we've had an ice-free day in January, and before that, there were no ice-free days in January. And we've been 13 years or so we've been doing this. So it seems like there's been kind of a change, but there's probably not long enough of a record to.
Maybe we could just do a snowman gauge if the
yeah.
if the men's club
yeah.
can give us their data.
But it is somewhat of a pain in the neck to collect this data because and to do it right, like to get this ice in, I needed to be driving by Pratt Pond almost every day, and then to get the ice out occurred. When was it? On the 5th. And that was similar. The first ice out occurred on January 5th this year. So someone has to watch it. It looked like the ice was melting and there was going to be an ice out soon, and then it finally happened on the 5th. Now you get a break. Don't really need to really pay attention to it, probably until February, too closely anyway. But the ice in and the first ice out, it takes somebody to keep a pretty close eye on the pond if you want good,
Maybe
consistent data.
We could recruit somebody who's in a butter to the pond, or make it a scout project of some sort.
Yeah, I actually know the guy who bought the house across the street right there at the intersection. I don't know if he'd be up for that, but I could ask him.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would be interesting information to have, and maybe depressing information, but
yeah.
If he's willing, that would be fun.
Well, I don't mind doing this as long as I'm still around. I've been doing it for 13 years now, but at some point, someone else will need to take over if we want to continue a long-term record.
What's
at least we'll have a window, even if this, doesn't go on much longer. We'll have a window that people can look back at in 100 years, or maybe 100 years from now, there would be barely any
ice in at all.
Yeah, there'd be time. Ice? What's ice?
What's your vantage point?
What's the vantage point?
Yeah, where are you standing?
It's near where the boat launch is, a little bit up the road from the boat launch. You can't see. Well, you can see pretty much the length of the pond, but you can't see the cove. To the right.
Around the corner.
Yeah, you can't see around the corner. So There could be ice there. There could not be ice there. So the vantage point is important, because if you had a different vantage point, you just wouldn't be taking consistent data. And I know I've seen ice still in the cove area when there's no ice in, you know, from the vantage point. So
Right. That was the point I was trying to make, though. If this truly is going to be a long-term thing, you have to continue to do it from the same point over time.
Yeah.
I think that's a good spot, Mike, because the beach always warms up anyway, and that's usually ice-free. But I think this is a great record to have, especially the last ice out date, so you can keep track of when, you know, that warm-up's coming.
maybe we should ask otters to do some monitoring for us. I think they probably benefit from as little ice as possible.
They're actually hanging out in the beaver impoundments upstream. Coming in.
That's a great picture.
Really is.
I think
They
I've
look
had more
like
likes.
you know, like the caption of that picture should be like quote, got fish, you know.
You put it on the website. Put the picture on the website.
Oh, sure, we could do that.
I think Mike already did.
Oh, all right.
It's on the
Well, I
Facebook
know.
page. It's on the Facebook page, and Marcella put it up on Sustainable Upton.
It's had more likes than anything I've ever put up there.
Yeah.
Well, we need that in the winter. Cheer me up stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Years ago, there were a few otter up behind my house in the brook.
Oh, cool.
They're still there, Sandy.
Good. I should go out and see. I saw a fox run by across the street today. He looked beautiful, nice and healthy. Are we done? We're going to adjourn?
No, sadly not.
Oh, all right. I didn't know. We're sort of meandering here.
Yeah, we're meandering through this topic, but
enough with the chit chat.
What I would suggest is that, well, if anyone has any comments, suggestions to add this, they should provide them to Mary, and Mary should kind of consolidate those comments and get the final out. When is it due? Pretty soon, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's actually already due. It was due yesterday.
Yeah.
So I know we're not the only board or committee that is behind. I told Sandy I hoped we could get it to her by Tuesday, but.
Well, how about, you know, if you have any comments on it or suggestions, give them to Mary this weekend, and then you can get it to Sandy by the 17th or whatever. 16th is the holiday, Martin Luther King Day. So. I don't know about Board of Health beaver trapping. I saw that. I don't know if they did any trapping this year. You might want to mention the Warren Brook NOI. I don't know. If anyone has comment, I'll probably send you a few. If anyone else has, just send them to Mary so she can finalize it. So that was the last thing we had on the agenda, and then I guess we need to go back up to administrative report.
Yes, there's a bunch of stuff to approve. Let me pull up the packet and show you guys the vouchers.
Oh, you know what? We're doing that. Let's. I've entertained a motion, kind of formalize what I was talking about the annual report. That make a motion that Mary be authorized to submit the Concom's annual report based on tonight's discussion.
So moved.
And any additional comments provided by commission members to Mary.
Second.
Any discussion? Voice vote, please.
Tom, I.
Alan, I.
Sandy, I.
David, I.
Mike, aye.
Marcella, I.
All right, so
And thanks, Mary. That's one of the more thankless jobs that gets done at the end of every year.
in your report,
Yeah,
I think it's easier than minutes.
that might be true.
All right, so we have one expense voucher from Bill for the postage for the whoops. We're getting a little echo. Is it still there?
A little bit, but not hugely.
Just for the postage for the NOI and the RDA, that the Land Stewardship Commission. So we just need a motion to approve that voucher for $28. And maybe we can do all of them. Then there was, and that's bills, receipts, etc. And then there's a bunch more. These are business cards. And then Dave came and gave me his files actually last week or sometime recently.
Excellent.
And he also submitted an invoice for his work on Governor's Landing mostly, and also the timing for getting the files together. So that was $460. And then Mike had expenses, I think it was hay, and then John Clark for doing the RFPs, or what, that's what I think they were. Forest management plans.
Mary, my expense, I don't think that's right. Unless we want to pay for unless the commission wants to pay for 3 pig's ears.
Oh, it was the 32. Okay.
Yeah. 32.85 is
all right.
the
I'll
3
fix
hay
that.
bales
Thanks.
that we used at Rockwood.
And then Mike had an additional one that I did not get on the voucher, but it is in the packet here, right here. This was for the natural heritage filing, $300.
That was for the Robertson NOI.
I move that we pay the bills.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, voice vote, please.
Sandy, I.
Alan, I.
David, I.
Marcella, I.
Mike abstains.
Great. Was that pretty much everyone? Tom and Dave?
Yes, I said I.
Okay.
As did I.
Yeah, and the balance in the accounts was pretty similar to last month, except obviously we just paid a bunch of bills, so that'll go down. I did not include the payments that are coming up. And I assuming on the $4,000 from John Clark, that should come out of the Land Stewardship Revolving Fund.
Question, how much have we spent out of that fund this year so far? Because we have a $10,000 limit.
Oh, well, it looks like
so 88. That's what we spent so far.
Yeah, that's what we spent this year. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have to find a different source. Now that we did get a grant, so much of that will be reimbursed by the DCR. But we still have to pay first and then get reimbursed.
Can we spend out of the conservation fund, or are we not allowed to do that?
We can do that if we want to.
If for an in-out, I don't know.
You know, it would be a legitimate expense for the conservation fund, and we have the authority to spend from it without any any other approvals.
So I'll go ahead and do that unless there's a better or more appropriate source for that money.
Probably should be a motion.
Okay.
Somebody make a motion. I mean, what are the options are the conservation fund or general expenses pretty much, right?
Well, yeah, there's, I don't have shown on here, but I have in the general legend, and I got to call Kenny. There's 2 land stewardship revolving funds, and I'm confused about, so this is one of them. The other one has less money. It's more like $10,000 in it, but that might have been having to do, I think we thought maybe the forestry project that was separate, so.
Yeah, I think what they did was the town received 2 separate payments from the forest contractor, and I think Kenny put them into 2 different accounts, but they really should be just in one.
Okay.
But I would make a motion that we pay for John Clark's services for the forest management plans from the general expense fund, with the understanding that we're going to be reimbursed this fiscal year, and we can basically put the money right back in that fund.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none, voice vote, please.
Aye.
Alan, aye.
Sandy, I.
Mike, aye.
Marcella, aye.
Okay, is that it for a financial update, I believe? Website.
So Mike, let me just get that straight. So
I'm
that's
sorry.
to come out of the conservation general expense, the regular general expense fund, right?
Correct.
Yep.
That was the motion.
I think that's it for administrative and financial.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to website, Alan.
Website, yep, I have updated the prep pond out and ice in with the dates we spoke about this evening.
Thank you.
And that's all. Thanks.
Okay. Open Space Committee. Mr. Taylor.
Yeah. I was contacted this afternoon by Matchy. He and his wife own 106 acres, which is directly west of the Forest Heights property. And he's called to gauge our interest in buying that land. It's otherwise surrounded by private property except to the north where it abuts an owner unknown property. So at this point, I think, I'll have to get together with the Open Space Committee to work with them to determine if we're interested. And if so, how we want to proceed and where we might get funding for it. I may ask Bob, I've already asked Bob if it's all right if we walk the property. He said sure. I might, with the Open Space Committee, set up a site walk, and I'll invite anybody who might be interested in coming along when I do that. Anybody has any feedback on it now, that would be helpful if so.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. That's
all right.
That's good news. Okay, that's it, Bill?
That's it, yep.
Okay, Land Stewardship Committee.
We're just getting as many work days in as weather permits and people's time permits. So that's pretty much it for us.
Okay, thank you. See, any discussion about the new items? Upton Ridge baseline report. I think we do that last 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, that probably we could have pulled off. I just left it on there because we're still going back and forth with the gentleman, right? He was gonna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He thanked us for the comments and was going to get back to us. The West River land donation, I think that was also discussed 2 weeks ago. It can probably go to ongoing items.
Okay.
162A Main Street. That's the lumberyard operation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've talked about that.
Yeah.
Annual town meeting warrant articles. I guess there's one to talk about. I guess we usually put in $5,000 for the conservation fund at the annual meeting. So could I entertain a motion to do the same this year?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Okay, voice vote, please.
Tom, I.
Alan, I.
David, I.
Sandy, I.
Mike, aye.
Marcella, I.
Okay. Any discussion about any of the ongoing items?
I put 22 Eames Road on there because when Dave stopped by, he said, "Oh yeah, that's the last thing I did is issue that enforcement order." And then I realized I haven't done anything with it. I don't know if they have done anything with it. And maybe someone knew more about it, but unfortunately, I was just looking for the enforcement order and I couldn't find it in the files that he gave me, so maybe I need to ask him about it. But I don't even have a copy of it.
I believe it involves a septic system. But other than that, I can't help you.
Well, I'll research that more. Maybe I'll give Dave a call.
Okay. Does anyone have anything else?
Yeah, actually, the Eames Lane thing, I remember that now. When they put in their septic system, they ended up clearing some land near or around it, and it was too close to a wetland.
So they're supposed to restore it or something?
Presumably, yeah.
All right, so that should be followed up on.
Yep. I'm actually not sure who was the actual violator, whether or not it was the seller or the party that's in there now, because the septic system was probably done by the seller before that property was sold.
Oh, that makes it tricky.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody?
Mike, for the annual meeting, do we also have to mention the items which are the revolving funds that we need to have also enlisted?
I don't think we need to do that. It might be worth just reminding them. But the last, several town meetings, they've just put all the revolving funds into one warrant article. So it's been quite a while since we submitted individual warrant articles for those funds. I guess maybe it would be worth just making sure none of them are left out off the list when they do the warrant.
So make sure to check the warrant when it comes out.
Okay. Anything else? All right, let's entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All voice up, please. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mike,
Chris,
aye.
aye.
Marcella, aye.
David,
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, folks.
Good
Take
night.
care.
Night.